Here we go. I'm marking, and we will start in 3, 2, 1.
Double-crossed another time.
Big Macs for hand jobs.
Hey everybody, it is December 28th. My name's Bobby Frankenberger, and you're listening to episode 33, despite what it says in the show notes. It is episode 33 of the Sixth World Podcast. The executive producer for today's episode is James O'Neill. Thank you for supporting the show, James, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Cassie Levitt. How's it going, Cassie?
I'm good. Hello, good sir.
Did you like that throwback to Big Macs and hand jobs?
I don't remember what's that from?
That was oh man, what's the guy? He's Roll20's best public GM, Adam Koval.
Oh.
That was a clip from
Oh no! Yes, I remember this now.
Stuff.
Yeah, it was
Mirror Shades, right?
It was a clip from Mirror Shades. Yeah, he said it.
Yeah.
And I clipped it out for the show, and as I do. And we are joined by a guest, like we're always joined by a guest. And it is he speaks for, well, he doesn't speak for himself because I'm speaking for him, but his reputation precedes him. He's the most frequent guest on our episode, believe it or not. I believe it because I have the spreadsheet to prove it. And it is Kevin Czarnecki, Shadowrun freelancer, and we're going to be talking about blood magic today. So that's why you're here, Kevin, and because we love you. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great.
You
just finished so much stuff, so I've really been enjoying a break.
Oh man, yes. I just got back from a break myself, as I'm sure a lot of people are doing this time of year, you know, it being the holidays of various kinds. And I was just in Atlanta, where my dad lives, so that was fun. Did you do anything fun for the holidays, Cassie?
No. I did the expected thing of me, the obligations, and I am done.
Yeah, the obligations.
Now I can do the fun stuff again. Yeah.
Yeah, we drove to Atlanta, spent some time with the fam, and my brother got this cool telescope. It's this crazy, like, big giant, like, what did they call it? Like a reflector telescope? I don't know. I think planets and stars and astronomy is awesome, but I've never, like, had the, like, telescopes are expensive, the good ones. And he got this really nice one. And, oh, when you look through a telescope at the moon, you expect that it's going to magnify, like, it's going to magnify it. But I was, like, blown away at how much it really, like, it's not just the moon bigger.
That's the best way to describe it.
I guess that's what I expected, right? Because I've never used, like, a really good telescope, and I just figured it would just be a bigger moon. But no, there's so much detail. It was so cool. I really got a kick out of it.
Almost as though you were closer.
Yeah, it was almost like we were what, like
seeing it telescopically.
Or it was almost like we were 30x closer, or whatever it was. No, that was really, really fun. Oh, and on the drive back, we stopped at this terrible gas. My daughter had to go to the bathroom. She's 4.5. We stopped at this terrible gas station. That was disgusting. The bathrooms were disgusting. And so we had to go into the men's restroom. There were no doors, like outer doors on the restrooms, which I feel like has to be illegal or something. I guess it's not, but like I could walk and buy a bag of Doritos and watch the ladies go into the bathroom in the ladies' room, I think. But I didn't.
Wow.
So we went in there and I had to. Yeah, this is a weird story. But I went into the men's room to take her in there, and there was only one stall, and it was locked from the inside. You know, like some jerk decided to do that, and so I had to get on the disgusting, gross bathroom floor and crawl underneath it because she wouldn't. Like, I didn't want to make her do that.
Hey, you thought about it though. Clearly, because you just said I mean, she wouldn't. I mean, clearly you were trying to get her to do it.
Right. I say I didn't want to make her do that, but what I mean is I didn't want to make her because I asked her and she wouldn't.
Right.
Right. But it was gross. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the holidays, only that it happened today because I just got back a couple of hours ago, and I'm very tired, and I'm surprised I'm this energetic.
You are like a pro.
We're gonna try one more time, Cassie, and if we don't get any calls today, it's not happening anymore. All right.
All right.
But we're gonna, if you guys in a few minutes, we're gonna do Q&A, and if you guys want to try and get on the Discord and jump into the voice channel, live events and discussion, I'll pull you in, and hopefully it'll work. I'll pull you in and we'll try. If not, no big deal, but we'll move on. I don't think we've gotten new patrons since then. I'm going through the list. Any news? Anything cool happening lately?
Bright came out, so
Yes!
maybe we'll talk about that maybe next episode. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I have. Well, we're doing I'll say more about it at the end when we do plugs and stuff, but we're going to be, the Shadowcasters Network's going to be doing a live sort of viewing party of it very soon. I think we can work that out, Kevin. You might be able to join us. I don't think we have like a full roster, full cast of characters to watch it yet. So we'll talk. Have your people call our people, and
I'll talk to you after the show.
Yeah. But let's go straight into, let's just do the Q&A thing. You ready for that? Moving right along today because that's what we do. Every episode we like to do Q&A. We take questions from our email, which is theshow at sixworldpodcast.com. You can also tweet us questions if you'd like to at the number 6worldpodcast. But the favored way, everybody likes to, easiest way, go to sixworldpodcast.com. Right there on the front page is a form you can fill out to ask a question for us to answer on the show, and it'll send it right to us. First question from today is from Ross. Actually, both of our questions today are from him, Ross D'Souza, who asks, do you have any thoughts about low body / strength characters donning on huge, bulky armor? I only see rules covering plus armor items and limitation there based around strength. I guess, Cassie, he's talking about how the encumbrance rules only apply to armor like enhancements, right? Like shields and helmets,
like things
and stuff.
that actually add armor. I guess I don't really usually, it's not based on body and armor. Sometimes I'll apply some penalties if people are trying to carry an excessive amount of weird stuff, or they are like, I've got a two-handed assault rifle, and I also want to carry this rating 6 med kit, and I'm like, you only have so many hands. If you wanted to impose like body strength kind of checks, that would probably be more like fatigue rules. I've
Sure.
definitely done that to people where people are like, I want to wear my armor jacket under my hazmat suit. I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to have you do fatigue checks because that's going to be hot and uncomfortable, right?
I want to wear my armor jacket with gel packs under my, big game hunter armor in the mouth of a volcano.
In the middle of the Amazon.
Right.
Well, that's gonna be warm. I would say fatigue check's the way to go, or even if it's just somebody who's particularly weak and they are wearing that amount of stuff for long periods of time, because that's gonna represent you're just getting fatigued and tired.
Kevin, what about the person who just acquired military, like light military armor, and is deciding to go on every Shadowrun with military grade armor? What do you do about that? And it's a mage.
Oh, I don't run with him.
You're just out of the party.
Right.
I'm less about the numbers and more about like the story.
Sure.
And
yeah.
for me, it's sort of like open carry. Like there is no point in history where anybody carried something openly where they were expecting trouble and people were just like, oh, hey, Fred. Hi, Bob. That's not That's not
Right.
how it works. If you walk around in mil-spec armor, every camera is going zzz, right at you. Every
Right.
person's going, I don't know who he is, but I don't want to stand next to him because he expects to get shot. The cops are going, okay, put a car on that guy. And then if you have to make a quick getaway, you're screwed. I think Shadowrunning is done best incognito,
Right.
which means going around in heavy mil-spec with exoskeletal boosts and a Panther assault cannon. I don't know if that's a Shadowrun anymore.
That's a pink mohawk.
That's just a run.
Yeah.
You're just running, just literally running from place to place.
Like in Queen Euphoria, it's like we're gonna assault this bug hive. Oh well, I better go get that mil-spec armor because are we hiding? No.
Yeah, fair.
We're blowing everything up.
What if your players are infiltrating a gaming convention and they could pass as cosplaying,
Master
right?
Chief, like.
All bets are off at a gaming convention.
Right, there you go. Okay.
My favorite.
The second issue of the old comic book Men in Black was literally about that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but rules wise, I also give a penalty to anything that you're doing. Like hand-to-hand combat while you're wearing mil-spec. Like I picture the little brother in A Christmas Story who's just like.
Right.
It's like a power armor. It's meant to be moved.
You're warm and nothing hurts. Other than that,
Right.
I don't, cause I don't have too many players who tried to do the mil-spec thing. My favorite one is the Big Game Hunter. That's the one I pull the picture out of Run and Gun. I'm like, this is what you're wearing to the mall, right? Like,
Right.
like,
Right,
that
because
is
the
literally-
numbers are pretty good on that armor, so it's really it's really tempting to just grab it, right? But this is what you look like. You're
Oh, yeah, no, it's really tempting. It definitely makes sense to wear it some places, but it's still like, this is what you're wearing. I'm so happy they did art of this, because this is what you're wearing right now.
And there's always that one player who's like, you won't let me play what I want to play, and I'm like, well, maybe you should save that idea for a different game, like Warhammer 40K. I could see you being a big, tall dude in power armor because that's the point, but or BattleTech or
right.
anything, but I'm not sure you're thinking in the right game. It's like
Right.
an espionage Pathfinder game where somebody wants to ride a giant puma everywhere. I don't know if you're thinking for the game, but that's just my experience.
Right.
The old session 0, right? Let's establish that.
Right.
It's always that one.
There you go. Session 0. Ross D'Souza, I hope I feel like you got our opinions on that type of armor. Rules wise though, there's nothing official in the rules for just the base armor. So if you're looking for rules, you're gonna have to house rule something. I like Cassie's idea of finding ways to, if you want to limit it, finding ways to use fatigue checks. So.
There is that fun stuff in the space armor in Run and Gun if you want some more ideas, because it actually takes a roll to put on.
Does
So
it?
if they're trying to overload
Right.
too much armor, start making them do that agility test to see if they have the flexibility to get in it.
That's fun. Ross's next question is another fun one. It's in the 6th world, what would you be if you could not be a Shadowrunner? Kevin,
I'm doing it.
right now, you'd be a writer.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Oh.
If in the fictional world I could write well, then yes.
my magic would have more bang. Other than that,
Yeah. Kevin's living the life is what he's saying. I think even if I could be a Shadowrunner, I don't think. First of all, I think there's this hidden implication in the question that we would all be Shadowrunners if we could. I would not. All right.
Let's be clear.
My answer also is similar.
Let's be clear. There are real Shadowrunners in real
There
life.
are.
Fair enough, and that's a
I'm not
really
doing
good
that.
point.
we tend to call them criminals and terrorists.
Right.
Um,
Right. So,
you
to
know,
be clear, in the Sixth World, I would not be a Shadowrunner, even if I could. Cassie is, I
I
think.
want to be that blissful wage slave living in an arcology that I never need to leave my entire life. That's gonna be me. I'll just go places in the Matrix when I want to go somewhere.
Right. I think that would be the way to go. I would, I'd probably do what I'm doing now as well. I'd just be a homemaker. And I'm tempted to say, because magic is really cool, right? I'm tempted to say I would be like a mage at a university or something. But then that puts me at risk of being nabbed by Shadowrunners. I really just want to go under the radar,
Yep,
So
let's bear in mind the world is becoming alarmingly like Shadowrun in all the worst ways.
right.
So we're gonna find out, guys.
And
You being a troll or an orc or a human, or your ability to fling fireballs and turn invisible, are fairly small compared to the overall dystopia of cyberpunk.
yeah.
Fair enough.
And I
So-
don't want to be part of the main plot of any Shadowrun adventures. So that's that. Let's thanks Ross for both of your questions this time. If you guys want to send us questions, just send them to the place we told you before. Go to sixworldpodcast.com there, or the show at sixworldpodcast.com. And if you want your questions, if you want questions that have priority, our patrons, any of our patrons who send in questions, they get first pick at us grabbing them to answer them. So let's just move on to the main topic of the show. Yes, today we are going to be talking about blood magic, and I brought my glass of red wine in this goblet-looking wine glass just for the occasion. It felt right in talking about blood magic.
I'm drinking blood orange.
There you go.
I did not come prepared for this at all. I just got water. This is
Patsy, you're full of blood.
man.
Talking.
Yeah. Well, you
Fair
know.
enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, we're going to talk about blood magic. Blood magic. It's got a long and storied history in Shadowrun, and most of it not fun. Most of it, well, it could be fun, I guess, depending on your perspective. So let's start with what we like to do, an overview. What is blood magic? Blood magic. Cassie, I saw in the notes you said something really, I think, that made a really good point in that it's actually sort of a catch-all term, right?
Oh yeah, I made a great point by copying the words out of Street Grimoire.
Don't sell yourself short. It takes a lot of work
All right.
to copy things out of a book.
It's a catch-all term for the practice of drawing power from harm. It says harm to a living being. Yeah, that's true. It's always a living being. It doesn't have to be. It can be sapient, or it doesn't have to be sapient, but it does have to be alive for the most part.
Sure.
It has to feel pain.
Yeah, and that is one of the
Yes.
important points
Thanks.
of blood magic, is that it must necessarily cause harm. And in sort of because arguably psychic harm, right, Kevin?
Yeah. It not in the woo-woo psychic, but in the your brain.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Because it's a point is made to say that blood magic really doesn't work on sedated or unconscious creatures, because they're not aware of what you're doing to them.
Yep.
Right.
Theoretically,
Sure.
you could do blood sacrifice, like you could do sacrificial meta magic on somebody, and you could hurt them in horrible ways with only a token amount of blood, and it would still work.
Sure.
But generally speaking, blood is an important aspect. Yes.
Right.
Because of the psychological aspect.
Right. That's kind of talked a lot about in Forbidden Arcana. If you guys really want to dig deep, there's a whole chapter on blood magic in Forbidden Arcana. I know there are some other books. I read all through. Kevin's holding it up on the stream right now. There's a lot of
actually sent me.
there's some other books that talk about it, but I did most of my reading anyway in Forbidden Arcana. But so basically, let's get down to it so we can move on to more of the details, which is that blood magic is performing some sort of magical thingy by causing harm to another individual, and that somehow involves their blood and somehow drawing power from that. It's described, the way that happens is described many different ways, and some people have a lot of different theories about how that happens. I mean, in one point it was described like you're using the blood or the body of the person as sort of like as like an analogy for a focus, or that you're tapping into their essence somehow and drawing from that. You know, there's a lot of different theories as to what's going on, but what is known is that by doing harm, you're drawing power or energy to fuel magic. What is the problem? Why are there are lots of bounties and illegal? It's illegal in most countries and megacorps and whatnot. What's the problem? Why is it so illegal?
Because it's addictive and because it requires harming somebody else.
Right.
Until now. Foci are dangerous because they are addictive, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Right, because something else is carrying the weight, and after a while you kind of just get weaker, and your muscles aren't doing the work, so your magic suffers. And you can get addicted to the feeling of, I have so much power, that you're actually, overclocking yourself all the time. Blood magic is the same thing, except you're making somebody else foot the bill. And that's obviously a predatory act.
Right.
But the fact that it's addictive means you are becoming addicted to hurting people for power. And metaphors of economic sacrificial metamagic done by the megacorps notwithstanding, it's really it's turning you into a serial killer. If it gets bad enough, you'll want to kill people just for the rush. It's no longer a tool, it's your pleasure.
Right.
It's like any other drug. You start doing tabs of jazz because you want to be better on the job, and then after a while you're doing tabs of jazz just because you want to feel normal. Right.
And so up until at least now, officially now, up until now, that was like almost a necessary part of it, right? And that's why it was so illegal. Like, if you do this, you're going to become addicted. But now, in 5th edition, since Forbidden Arcana, we've gotten a lot of talk and rules for how this is possible to do and maybe not become addicted, and not necessarily may not necessarily require you to do harm to others. Right.
Since you mentioned rules, in the chat room, the real Santiago, that's Alex Kadar, the guy who wrote the rules with me. So
Alex.
Yes.
Hey, pal.
You got to get him on the show sometime.
Yes.
Yes. Basically, we were told we wanted accessible blood magic, but not to make it less dangerous. So we split the difference and started looking at good guy examples of sacrificial meta magic, and it really comes down to self-sacrifice or willing sacrifice. There are notes that in ancient Aztec culture, being chosen as a sacrifice was a point of honor. You willingly went up there. Not always, but
sure.
It happened. Or you think about, I was watching the Oxford murders, and there's a guy who kills himself so his kid can have his organs. Or, if you want to get religious, Jesus.
Sure.
So, these are all blood, which I think you're going to talk about the Great Ghost Dance later, so I don't want to jump the gun on that.
Yeah, there's we could talk about that, and Yeah, let's hold off on that. It was listed as something that I thought was interesting that I might have wanted to ask about. But let's since we're talking about rules and how now, so the big thing in Forbidden Arcana, the big thing in 5th edition now is that for the first time officially, you can actually use blood magic as a player, and you've not been able to do that before, right?
Correct. It in previous editions there were rules for sacrificial metamagic that allowed NPCs to have it, and just sort of created a story like fluff reason for why characters shouldn't have it. You could theoretically give sacrificial metamagic to a player character. I remember I'm pretty sure 4th Ed Street Legends, we had Ire, or Saren Shamander, and he's got sacrificial metamagic. And he was the protagonist of the very first Shadowrun book I ever read.
Right.
Nosferatu. My God, I'm a cliche. And I was like, huh. So he's theoretically a player character. How come he gets to have it? And, you could have it. There just weren't any rules for it, and it was super dangerous. So what we did was we made it where humanity is learning how to use blood magic in more responsible ways. Our understanding of magic in general is broadening, which is, part of the point of the whole book. Mm-hmm. Last edition, alchemy was, if anything, very different. And before that, I don't think there was alchemy at all.
Right.
So, you could make orichalcum. Or radicals, but you couldn't, do stuff with it. You couldn't make a magic potion. So as our understanding deepens and as the awakening of the world, as the age moves on, magic develops. It's more leveling out a bit. This plays into the Great Ghost Dance again. We'll talk about that later. But basically, they're finding ways to do it which are not as dangerous.
Sure.
It still comes with a slew of risks. It's still risky, it's still dicey, and it's still illegal because of those risks.
Right.
I'm sure they can come up with ways to more safely take drugs, but that's not going to stop it from being abusable and harmful. Really the same concept here.
Right. Most people, yes, I may be the one responsible cocaine user, but probably it's not safe for the rest of the people to be able to freely use cocaine, even though I can do it.
It's like when you tell somebody drive safe, and they're like, I'm a safe driver. It's like, yeah, but I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about all the other drivers.
Sure,
on the road.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
same argument, but anything else.
Yeah. So
well,
Cassie,
and this is the first edition where it's become like something player characters can do. So there's still that stigma in the world that would be tied to it, because
Yes.
it does taint your aura, and people don't necessarily know how you're using it, right? They just know that you are a blood mage, so
Right.
you could be still that serial killer on first impression, or the sacrificial mage. I think, I don't know. I guess the other big thing is, should player characters have it? I know that there's some debate about that.
That's a good question, because there are wasn't it just the last episode that we talked about, what were we talking about?
Bug spirits.
Bug
Playable
spirits. We had a whole conversation about okay, so players can be bug spirits now. Is that why? Why should we let people do that? You could ask the same question about blood magic. I think I have an answer, and I could speculate on what Kevin's is. But since we have him here, Kevin, what do you think? Should we be letting player characters be blood mages?
He's got a biased opinion. I think he wrote most of this.
Yeah. My answer is the same I give to everybody. What's right for your table?
Sure.
I mean, if your game, for some reason, has room for a dragon player character, do it. And if your game has room for a mixed group of bugs and infected and pixies, that's your table.
Right.
The way I see it, it's not a matter of what we should allow or not. It's what we should. Our job is to try to give stable rules that can be used if it's right for your game.
Sure.
I still get the odd person who's like, I don't think infected should be playable. Well, then don't have them at your table. That's a really easy fix there.
Right.
And just the fact that it's published doesn't mean you have to use it. I mean, I throw out half the rules whenever I run any game.
Right.
But that's my table.
I think blood magic is cool, and I think I actually I didn't like the idea of bug spirits, and we're not going to rehash that, but I do like the idea of blood magic, because of the self-sacrifice angle. I think there's really cool RP opportunities for players that play this sort of self-sacrifice. I think I've even mentioned before, Cassie, I love the idea of like a blood paladin, like someone who wants to protect, and is willing and often does self-sacrifice in order to accomplish that.
I'm more of like it for the RP of jumping on that slope to evil and letting someone slide down it, right? And like continue that progress there. I like those options where it's easy for a character to kind of fall from grace, and whether that's addiction or blood magic or whatever your power is. I think
it's a cyberpunk setting. It's about excess.
Yeah,
I mean, you can have addiction to cyberware, and cyberware can give you cyberpsychosis down the line, not to rip off from Cyberpunk 20 whatever the hell, but because who knows what they're at now. You run the risk of getting insanity from any power that can be abused. This one is just a much finer, dare I say, bleeding edge version of it. So
I see what you did there.
But it's like anything else. I mean, if you think about it, a mage can overcast a healing spell, causing physical damage to themselves to heal a companion. That's only thematically different.
Sure. So let's talk about let's put a little bit more concrete terms on what we're talking about. Cassie, how do you? So obviously, player characters can do it now. So how do you? How do you do that? How do you become a blood mage, Cassie?
I haven't really had anyone heavily want to try it. I think my character was being of the Norse tradition, which in history, the Norse are definitely blood mages, or should be. They pretty much everything they do ritual-wise would be bloody. But yeah, I think I've got a few players who've dabbled in it a little bit, but for the most part, I really haven't had anybody dive down that slope. And I think if I did, I would probably want to have awakened NPCs have a really negative impact on them if they were to sense them or something like that. I would definitely, if that word gets out there and they use it a lot, probably send bounty hunters after them, because I like to do that.
Right.
Somebody try to turn you in. And then, those kind of things. And if nothing else, just encourage the player or the character to maybe have to take masking and those sort of things to try to hide it. Even if you are using it sacrificial and good, that makes no difference when somebody's just looking at your aura while passing you by, right? They're just going to see that taint unless they stop to ask you why it's there.
Yeah, that definitely makes it risky to do that. But in terms of actually taking that leap, is there some sort of, do you have to just learn a special meta magic in order to do you learn a meta magic in Blood Magic Unlocked? Is that how it works?
You're going to need to probably know the sacrifice if you're doing it as a mage.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's
okay. The cannibal. Do you have to learn cannibalism if you're an adept? I know cannibalism can be taken, but I can't remember if that's the one you have to take or if you.
I thought cannibalism built off of
sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
I was thinking it was the replacement too.
Could be. Alex would know more than I
right.
would.
So sacrifice. That's the meta magic technique that actually provides you with, like, using that provides you with blood magic points. So mechanically, that's how it works, right? You have to use blood magic points in order to perform blood magic, like casting blood spells and stuff like that. So I guess, sacrifice is how you unlock that. But corpse explosion, I'm looking through the book right now, and I always pause at corpse explosion.
I straight up stole that from Diablo 2. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely makes me want
It's funny you say. I always think of I didn't even think about that. I think of the bloodbenders from Avatar, right?
Oh, we borrowed stuff. Screw that. We stole stuff from all over the place.
All over.
Oh yeah. I mean, Bloodsword shows up in anime all the time. Just like, especially with vampire animes, because I watch those. We had some cool ones. I came up with a lot of them, and I really like watching Alex shudder when I say something. I'm like, ooh, corpse spikes. No, corpse slash, and he's like, what? And I like showed him a clip from The Thing. He's like, no. I'm like, yes. Big rules for that. He's like, oh God, what? Oh. We're just picturing this, or no, the one he hates is Viscera Web.
Viscera Web. Ooh, that
I think I got the idea for that from the 3rd edition D&D Book of Vile Darkness. There was a spell a lot like that. Literally makes your veins rip out of you and attach to a nearby thing, so you're hooked to the walls or the ceiling or whatever by your own viscera. And to cut yourself free, you have to cut yourself.
And this is why no one likes blood mages.
I was just about to say, and you wonder why people think blood mages are evil.
I mean, but the flip of that, and yes, blood puppet is absolutely blood bending, by the way.
That's blood bending. That's what I was thinking of.
100%, that's what it is. But sheer damage, somatic healing,
and that's what I think about when I think about the self-sacrificing blood paladin, right? Is like somatic healing, where you're not just healing, you are you're transferring the wound of an individual to yourself. You're absorbing it. I just like that thematically, like that idea. It's definitely on the other end of the spectrum from Viscera Web.
Well, that's something else that I say when people are like, should I allow this in my game? Well, nobody said you had to give it to the players.
Yeah. Oh, man.
You want to make a spooky bad guy, take a look at Viscera Web and Corpse Lash. Take a look at the things you can do to enhance bugs or infected or whatever. So, this Shadowrun is one of those rare games where the theoretical bestiary and the player's handbook are not that far off.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of crossover. So.
And blood spirits can be terrifying as well. So.
Yes, there is no benevolent way to make a blood spirit. At all.
Yeah.
No.
And making what do we call them? Okay, there's the bone spirit. You can benevolently make a bone spirit because nobody has to die. You just need a lot of bones.
Ah, sure, okay.
And their attitude isn't in any way malevolent. Like if you attack them, they'll just be like, okay.
I just imagine Halloween-style skeletons, like.
Pretty much. I pictured the
clicking
bone
and clacking
golems from what was it? Ravenloft, Strahd's Possession, old PC game from TSR and SSI. The bone golem looked like a collection of different bones, and it had a bull's head because for some reason they always do. And I thought, yeah, like that. But
your description, your image is much more interesting and potentially scary. Mine is very naive and juvenile.
That's fair.
Like you run into a Sixth World sex shop and you're like, good components.
Okay, so we're gonna see like some of the ways that we use or players can use now blood magic, and obviously maybe some of the ideas of blood magic is shifting a little bit. But let's talk about some of the big events that have happened in Shadowrun that maybe have influenced this reason why we don't like blood magic. Because I think even Big D offered in his will, right? The DMIR will give you still to this day bounties for blood mages.
Yes.
Which we also mention in the chapter.
So what is it? What is it then that you're talking about? What is it that Dunkelzahn was worried enough about that he left in his will? Do something about this. Find these people and destroy them.
Well, we don't know that they're being destroyed.
Well, find these people and bring them to one place.
Yeah, 5 captures pay way more. Makes you wonder what DIMR is doing with them.
Right. So what is it? What is it about? Like, what did he know that the average person doesn't, or what? What are these things that you're talking about?
Oh boy, I gotta not blow any plot developments that aren't out yet. Well, let's put it this way. Dunkelzahn had a very good idea of the things that are dangerous for metahumanity, and he wanted them to move forward and lift themselves up and be ready for the threats that are coming.
Sure.
Threats. And, the blood magic has an unfortunate way of thinning the manosphere, like thinning the bridge between this world and the other, the barrier between them. So the actual like act of performing blood magic, or is it somehow the energy is different? It's not necessarily that it's different. Think of it this way. What happens when something really horrific happens in an area? Okay, like, so you're talking about like background count, right? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, it's possible to have background count that's positive. Sure. It's also, frankly, easier to make background count that's negative. Right. And blood magic depends on suffering. Right. It depends on torture and death and horror and pain and terror, and that's going to create some very negative background count, which can be very hard to clean away, and which makes the world overall a less safe place to be. You know, if you have a high enough background count, that's when you run the risk of something from a bad place opening a gateway through that thinning and coming out. Now, he comes from a time from, some theoretical RPG I'm sure I don't know about, probably around the dawn of the Earth. I have no idea what you're talking about. Where blood magic was totally a safe thing. Well, not necessarily safe, but it was commonplace. It was codified. It was understood. You could use it in a safe and responsible way without causing all of this muckety-muck and hoobaloo. Right, and in Forbidden Arcana, Aaron the Scribe, or Wordsmith, refers to that. He talks about an old time when in worlds past, like the Fourth World, where blood magic was commonplace. Mm-hmm. Now, the difference between this time and then is that back then, blood magic was being used in a world that never really evolved to the point that ours did. They had they stayed in sort of a relatively medieval technology level. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the Matrix or computers, and so they didn't have the level of communication and therefore rapid advancement that we do. And so we've got the capacity to muck around with these things that are way beyond where we should be. They're way past what we ought to be developing. And okay, seriously, can we talk about the ghost dance, because this just is gonna keep coming up. Right. Well, I did want to talk about examples of like that people could relate to about what blood magic is, and we've jumped from different ones. But so the Great Ghost Dance is like the big example, right? Okay. If I read some of this in some previous books where they sort of alluded to it, but Dylan, another fantastic freelancer, he's a Native American himself. He told me, he's like, the ghost dance is sacrificial meta magic. I go, what do you mean? He says, it's you dance until you die. Like, the Great Ghost Dance was a lot of Native Americans doing this big ritual where their life force was being siphoned away to create big magical stuff. So I'm like, okay, so you're saying that, and we know that the Ghost Dance effectively jump-started the Sixth World. Right. Mm-hmm. The awakening should have been very gradual. Aaron the Scribe talked about this in a previous edition's book. He was talking about, like, I'm not a morning person. I lay in bed for an hour before I get up.
Right.
And that's what the world is like. He said the Great Ghost Dance was like cold water being splashed on you, or more accurately, somebody stabbing you awake. So it's like,
that's the worst way to wake up.
but yeah, exactly. And if you woke up from being stabbed, what would the rest of your morning be like?
Ugh.
What would the rest of your day be like?
Yeah, there's no amount of coffee that would fix that, I don't think.
No. And normally, like theoretically, there's only been 6 ages that we're aware of. The world would wake up. It would be like, what am I doing today? I gotta, and then does its thing.
Right.
And we would gradually eased our way into magic. Elves would have showed up more gradually, dwarves, everything else. Goblinization probably wouldn't have been a punch in the face. I think it would have been more like UGE for everything.
Sure.
But here the Great Ghost Dance happens right around the time that the Earth probably would have slept in for another hour. It gets stabbed awake. And in the relative time since the awakening and the length of time that an age takes, the Earth is still screaming.
Right.
It's still trying to shake off sleep. It's still trying to forget the dream it was having. It's still going, who stabbed me? Why? What's happening? And because of that, it's magic and everything else is still a very raw and unstable force. There's 1,000 years into the future, Shadowrun, 3,500 or whatever, what magic's going to be much more normalized.
Right.
Everybody's going to have magic if they have even a point of essence left. The people who are mages now are going to be like gods if they're still alive somehow. And there's going to be a lot of weirder stuff out there. But right now, the Earth is in an incredibly vulnerable, volatile time. And what happens next is very important for how it develops. Dunkelzahn can acknowledge that blood magic can be used safely. But when you first wake up from being stabbed awake, do you really want to go picking at it some more?
Yeah. That's a really good point. And so are we... The fact that people are now figuring out how to, albeit a very small group of people, but some people are figuring out how to use blood magic in different ways, let's say, and maybe some of them are learning to use it, for lack of a better word off the top of my head, quote unquote, safely. Is that evidence that stabbed awake world is steadying itself and getting a little bit used to the morning, so to speak?
No.
So
I get why I absolutely understand why you would say it, but no.
It's really just an example of how people are just creatively or through ingenuity or something like that, figuring out how to manipulate that.
Yes. The fact that we're finding ways to do something without causing more harm doesn't change the fact that most people are still going to use it wrong.
Right.
And that's, look at BTLs. A BTL, like SimSense, theoretically, is perfectly safe. And yet some dumb jerk just had to take out the safety limiters and go too far with it. And that started an epidemic.
Thank God.
So if you've got a bunch of, Dunkelzahn, I'm not going to say he was wrong. I'm going to say that he was taking the path of greater caution.
Sure.
And knowing what he knows, who could blame him? The difference here is that he also has a draconic perspective, which means he sees an awful lot more, and he believes in us probably more than any other dragon, even has to be. She's trying, but he really believed in us. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't change the fact that he's not human, and he doesn't feel things the way a human would. He doesn't necessarily trust us with ourselves quite that much. He and Harlequin agreed in that regard, where it's like, we want humans to be able to take care of themselves. We want meta-humanity to stand up on its own and fight these things off without us calling the shots and doing all the work for them. They're like parents pushing a kid on a bike and hoping they don't fall over.
Right.
But that doesn't change the fact that Dunkelzahn's never been a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Harlequin is so far away from that time that it's amazing he remembers any of it.
I mean, too, but it talks about even when you're doing self-sacrifice blood magic, that's still creating that ripple of pain or agony, or you wouldn't be getting the points from it, right? So I feel like it's almost like he's still right that I don't care if you're using it for good, you're still thinning that layer, right? You're still putting that film there.
Have you ever hurt for someone else?
Not in a physical way where I've cut my okay, yes. I've given blood, so I guess I have in a way. Right?
Sure. But like if you ever put yourself out because you cared about somebody else more than how it would suck for you?
Yeah, but I guess I still see it as more the blood magic, even when it's being good for good reasons or whatever, is still like you're using like a shortcut essentially to try to get to the goal, right? Where like, so especially somebody like Dunkelzahn is going to be like, this isn't going to be worth it. Like I understand it may be helping you through this fight today,
Sure.
but you're slowly killing the sixth world, right?
It's, I'm gonna just for my own table, at least, and as far as what I write, using blood magic in a self-sacrificing way has a completely different emotional resonance. It's suffering, but it's suffering for love or for affection or for something noble and good. You're giving of yourself and that is a completely different thing from taking from someone else. The emotional resonance.
If you cut off that ear.
if the emotional resonance of a person on a table, a person on a table is being tortured, mm-hmm. The emotional resonance of that area is going to be pain, terror, death. Oh God, they're ripping my soul out. Whereas the pain of a mother giving birth isn't negative. It might feel like, whoa, this is extreme. This is potent. Oh my God, wow, they love that baby. Or jumping in the way to take a bullet for a friend.
Obviously, I would disagree because those are still going to register the same emotions, essentially, even if you've done it for a heroic cause, because you're still going to be in physical pain and suffering while that has happened.
Pain isn't what colors it. That's the difference. I see what you're saying about pain being pain, but pain that you willingly choose versus pain that is given to you unwillingly is a totally different thing. I work as a dom sometimes. Believe me, it's a totally different thing.
Sure, yeah.
It's so if somebody's like willing to hurt for a cause, the emotion behind that is different from unwilling pain, fear, and terror and death. And that's the difference.
I guess. I don't know. I don't think I would make that distinction in most of my games.
And I don't think most people in the sixth world can make that either. A lot of them are just like, hey, pain is pain, yo.
What we do know,
them and not me.
What we do know is that either one of those does mark your aura.
Yes.
So there has to be some sort of common mechanism, if you will, that causes that marking to occur. That at least most people can't distinguish between.
Yeah, it would take a really good sensing roll to feel the difference, and most people aren't going to take that time. I hate to make this political, but it's kind of like open carry laws.
Sure.
Where it's like, if you see a dude walking down the street with a gun strapped to his hip, you're not going to walk up to him and be like, excuse me, are you carrying that gun because you're planning to save me from other people carrying guns who aren't as responsible as you? Or are you the responsible guy? Or are you planning on using that to shoot me?
Right.
And so, additional question, is my asking all these questions going to make you shoot me?
Right. I totally see what you're saying.
Dude covered in blood and you think, ah!
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's entirely possible to see if they're self-sacrificing or not, and hey, let's hope that if you're captured and brought into the DIMR, and they do whatever mysterious thing they're doing, and you only practice self-sacrificing metamagic, and you're not addicted, that they'll take the time to analyze it and go,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Let's talk about. There are a couple of things I want to make sure that we touch on before we have to move on, and I think anything we miss, chat room. By the way, who you guys who are listening live, make sure you make us cover anything that we don't cover or that we missed in the after party. But there are a couple of things I want to make sure we touch on before we go. First of all, there's the 500-pound Aztec pyramid in the room is megacorps who like to use blood magic, aka Aztec technology. So we all know that that's the thing. I do have a related question. How commonplace is it known really that Aztec technology uses blood magic?
It's literally televised on their news networks.
I'm going to have a talk with our good friend Opti, because he made the argument in our last episode of Head Cases that most people don't know that they use blood magic. But I thought the same as you, Kevin, that everybody knows that they do it.
Yeah, that's not a secret.
Because they do it publicly, right?
I don't know where you got that idea, but Aztlan does not hide it at all. In fact, they televise it. You can watch official sacrifices by corporate officials on their network. That's not a secret at all. That's all the way back to first edition.
I mean, in Opti's defense, I'm sure that they spin it in such a way that we're just practicing our religion, right?
Sure,
I bet
okay.
It probably is not seen as as evil blood
them,
magic as much to the general public. But
to them, it's not a matter of spin. It's a matter of perspective.
Right.
It's like,
that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, if I was asking somebody the other day, like, how are there, I think we watched Beasts of No Nation, and I remember saying, why are there so many warlords in Africa? And Dylan told me about the whole history of that. And he was like, if you grew up in that situation, you wouldn't realize an alternative.
Sure.
And that got me thinking about the normalization of stuff. If, I'm a white kid who grew up in the suburbs, so my concept of what somebody else's life is like, what their options are, and what their moral upbringing is completely different from somebody who grew up with nothing or everything. And if you grow up in Aztlan watching this on the Trid, is that weird to you?
Right.
Well, that's fair with Aztlan. I was thinking more of like even people in the UCAS or other places, where it may still not be seen as norm. I mean, as technology is the king of spin, arguably in some ways more so than Horizon even is when it comes to PR.
I want you to be wrong, but I know you're not.
No,
because that was the whole point of Horizon.
Yeah. Well, Horizon is good at spin, but it's usually obvious. As technology is arguably number 2, and they're sneaky.
They're number
the
2
ones you don't realize they're doing
they want you to think they're number 2.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always I imagine that even then, I bet even in the UCAS, if somebody brings it up, they probably have some PR guy going oh, we're just practicing our religion. It's the way we handle things.
Well, even
he's probably spinning in such a way that's don't worry about it.
Even Plateau of Lang in the chat room makes the point.
On your door.
Yeah, Plateau of Lang in the chat room makes the point that they do a lot of sacrificing of criminals. That's one way they can spin it.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. That
and I think
it's to death for the benefit of the nation.
Right.
I think that's the ones that they more do openly and publicly
sure.
too, right? Even though I know aren't the Blood Jaguars trained in subduing combat so that they can try to get people back? Because they'd rather have enemies for the magic than dead ones if they can.
Oh God, Blood Panthers are the ultimate, but it's my religion.
Yeah.
That is 100% what they are. They're like, oh, well, I'm a vampire, which clearly the gods wanted. And I mean, if I have to eat souls because the gods wanted me to, Seems to me like carrying it forward is an organic extension of my faith.
How deep does it go with as technology? Do they are they like dedicating every Stuffer Shack opening with a ritual sacrifice, or
That would be impractical.
and impressive?
Yes, and every Stuffer Shack would be tainted by that. So, no, I think it's something where they have the public ones, but the nitty gritty of how it works, and and like the technical use of it, I don't think that gets televised. But they use it, absolutely. They use it. God, this is such a broad question because it's a mega in a country.
Right.
So like, when do they use it?
It's okay if you don't have an answer. I really just wanted to make the Stuffer Shack joke.
Let's just say they don't use it for everything, but if it'll help, they won't shy away from it.
Right. But so as technology does blood magic, we all know that. That's a given. What about some interesting things that you can do? And I want to jump right to the big one, which is now in Forbidden Arcana, it was introduced in 5th edition with blood magic being sort of introduced to players. There's this thing that was introduced called the section was called Crimson Crystals, but are they just called blood crystals?
This was entirely Alex's brainchild.
Right.
He wanted to do this for so long, and I'm so glad we got to do it. And I really wish he could take over here because it's so his thing.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah.
They're blood crystals.
So the idea is that these blood crystals can be used to replace or regrow lost or damaged limbs of awakened people, specifically people who are awakened, somehow magically active in some way or another. And that excludes people who are infected with HMHV.
Yeah.
For some reason it doesn't work for them, but it allows it to.
Alex wanted infected blood crystals, but I argued that the infection itself would be like, no, mine.
Right.
Get out.
There's the blood crystal and the virus are sort of competing for the same resource, right?
Yeah, which doesn't make for a good synthesis.
Right.
It's
so the idea is that you could use these crystals to regrow limbs, and you still have an essence lost from having this replacement limb, but the benefit to an awakened is that you have the essence loss without the loss in your magic attribute. Which is for an awakened person, that's like effectively negating the loss of limb, because that's why you care as an awakened that you've lost essence. You lose magic. So that's really and I understand exactly why, at least mechanically, you would want the essence to still be lost, because you have to limit it somehow, right?
Yes.
But that's. And guys, don't think that you can just go out and get these blood crystals, because it's specifically mentioned in the book, like nobody really knows exactly how you like doesn't it say that people just kind of like you're a mage and you lost an arm, and that's really sad, and you're in your hospital bed and some mysterious cloaked figure approaches you and says, well, you want that arm back? Because all you gotta do is shove this in your stub, and in just a couple hours it grows back, right?
Yeah, that's we had some discussions about how available it should be, and we figured right now it's very, very, very rare. None of the corps have access to it. Most of them aren't even aware that it exists yet.
Right.
This is like small individuals, especially ones who are outside of the normal, the normal world. Like if a major corporate mage lost their limb, they wouldn't be approached with the offer because they've got too many people who are going to see it and ask too many questions.
Right.
So right now, a Shadowrunner is infinitely more likely to have it than anybody else. To me,
yeah, exactly. To me, it was even in the book talked about, I heard from a friend of a person who happened to be in the hospital bed next to someone who got a visit from this person that this was a thing. Like, it was very clear in the book that this is really, we have no idea what it even says in there. Nobody knows who these people are that are that control these crystals. It feels very much to me like at this state in the game that it's very much a plot device for GMs, and it's very much a way to use a plot device to create a story to help out that mage that got his arm or leg blown off in some dramatic way, you know, and
Absolutely.
and for that reason I love it. I think it's really cool. What do you think, Cassie? Have you over there on the grid played with blood crystals yet?
I don't think we've had anybody who's really been interested in messing with them, or probably had the opportunity. I think we've had one mage who's lost a limb after the Street Sam shot him in the leg, but he's been hobbling around on just an old prosthetic for now. So
Sure.
he's been okay with that. As far as like, I don't know, you can always get the BioWare limbs regrown, and they don't cost essence. I think the ones in Chrome Flesh, I want to say.
Clonal
But-
limbs.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I probably wouldn't play with it at all in any of my games. If somebody on the Emerald Grid really wants to, we'd probably let them try it out just to see. But
That's one thing that I'm not sure about. You know, I don't know of anybody who has ever used it, so I don't know, you know, how does it play balance-wise, or how does it feel like in play?
So, like, it feels just like its intent is to give the mage a way to essentially get cyberware without costing them magic.
Sure.
Yeah, which is why it's got some cool abilities, but it's nowhere near as flexible as what a Street Sam or anybody else could get. It's nowhere near as available. We just wanted to offer another option, a rare one. We know who's supplying it, and it does link into a meta plot that we're going to develop in the future. So this is one of the first whispers you've heard of them.
Right.
Mhm.
So that'll come later. But for the moment, it just seemed like a really cool toy that we could throw out there, and you know, it's super rare. You
Right.
will not ever run into a security guard who's got this.
And
If they've got a sin, they don't have this.
and there's a lot you can do with it. It's for anybody who's interested who has Forbidden Arcana, it's on page 132 of that book. The things you can do with it, the qualities you can get, and they're pretty cool. You can get a crystal eye. Awesome.
I could definitely see doing like a sort of like plot around it, or a story plot. It's something bad happens to your mage, and the next few runs they end up getting this somehow, helping someone or doing a thing. I haven't really found a use for it yet, but
Yeah, I
a
love
neat
the idea of it being a plot device, or even like indebting your player to some like really powerful organization like the Black Lodge or something like that. That could be really interesting story-wise, you know.
Yeah, I could see it being something that I probably play with more if and when they tell me who it's coming from or what it is right now.
Right.
I don't really see how it fits into most of my games at this moment, but
Right. Well, before we go, let's I want to hear from each of you what is one thing, a blood magic thing that you think is really neat, either story-wise or thematically, or just something we didn't talk about, like mechanically, that you can do now with it. Just final thoughts, so to speak. Cassie, I'm gonna start with you.
I super love keeping blood magic as the evil villains.
Yep.
Even if a player wants to do it, I'd probably still go down that route. And so with that in mind, I've actually been running the old hazard pay bounties, where there's a number of named blood mages in 4th edition hazard pay that you can go after, and it includes
Ooh.
the price on their head, and you can
Nice.
hunt them down.
What are those
Who's
prices? What kind of prices are there for blood mages?
I believe one of them's as low as like 50,000 or something like that, and then they just go up from there to up to like 350,000, and it usually turns who you're turning them into. And a lot of those, like, I think one of them's a extern Raku employee who's running amok. So if you turn him into an Raku dead, it's worth more than if you turn him into like the DMIR, who knows what the DMIR is doing with them.
Right.
Maybe Kevin knows. Yeah. So yeah, there often depends on like kind of which route you go, and if you're
So
working for the corp for money.
Speaking up, follow-up question to your final thought, Cassie. How do you let's say I have a blood mage and I want to give it to the DIMR, the Dunkelzahn Institute of Magical Research. Do they have like a blood mage drop box? How do I do that?
Yeah, you just slip them in the post. And no, I've actually been doing it by using sticks. I wanted to introduce more of my players to the real jack pointers, and so I've been having essentially sticks tracks them down, tells them like he's in this area, and then I let the players go from there and actually try to capture him, and then they give him to sticks. That way they don't have to mess with any of the corpse or anybody, and sticks turns them in for the bounty.
So, but if you just randomly come across one.
I mean, what is it, Crimson? I think Lily Red just finds one and then drags it into like, the Draco.
No, he doesn't just find one. He's sent after one by.
Well, okay, so he's sent after one. Then he gets his man and stuff like that. And I think he just drags him in, right? And then they just like have him bound and gagged, like, here, this is yours now. Like.
Yep.
So what you're saying is there is a drop box.
Right in the
There's
front
a
door,
lobby.
just in
There's
the lobby.
There's a lobby. It's. I wanted to be complicated about it, and then I thought, no, it was the 60s.
Sure, yeah.
Everything was cool in the 60s.
Right.
You just walked in, slot your sin, blood mage.
I think I really I love the scene too, because it's like, it's not an easy fight. And so by the end of it, I just always imagine like kind of one of the heroes like John McClane or somebody like that at some point where they're just like some blood dripping down. They look me down like, this is yours now. Give me my money. Like,
Yeah.
That's as a small side note. The sound I tried to describe for blood spirits.
Yeah.
Is one of the sounds of the Zerg Queen from the original StarCraft.
Nice.
That like weird. I can't even do it.
Yeah.
But it's like just a weird whistle growl thing.
Oh, I know the sound you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
So Kevin, what about you? Final thoughts on blood magic?
I think blood magic is one of those fantastic ways that if you have if you have a mature group of players who want to play with fire, this is absolutely the way to do it. I think just this, like the blood magic in general, is fantastic for villains. I mean, don't overuse blood mages. They are rare one way or the other. I mean, good blood mages are like a sliver of a population that is tiny to start with.
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
You know, but if you want to play a character who's playing with fire or razors, as the case may be, I think it's a fantastic way to do that. But then again, I think the same thing about playing a bug spirit, you know? If you still have memories of your host, you start wondering, do I wish I was that person instead of me? What's that like? These are great, meaty, crunchy questions that make for fantastic characters and amazing games. So if you've got players who can handle it, and if you're up to running it, and it's something everybody wants, I think there's an amazing story to be told there. And that, to me, story is everything.
I 100% agree. And my final thought is that oaths sound really cool.
That's Alex.
Yeah, oaths are a blood magic thing in the new stuff where you sort of become like a blood brother with somebody, and you're connected to that person sort of spiritually, almost literally, like in the astral, you have a connection to that person. There's a lot of different things you can do with that connection, but that sounds cool to me. Lots of cool things you can do with that with other players and whatnot. But alas, there we go. That music means that it's time for us to wrap up the show. We're going to be having an after party for you people in the chat room, as we do. So if you've got questions or things that we didn't cover that you want to talk about, or you just want to hear us talk about it, then save them and throw them at us here in just a couple of minutes when we do that. But in the meantime, that's it. It was great talking to you, Kevin, about blood magic.
It's always fun.
You're right. We should have gotten Alex on here. I think we talked about doing it, and I think the holidays happened, and I forgot to get back to you about that. So, Alex, who's in the chat room right now, we're going to get you on the show, and we should have done it for this one. And there's no apology I can make, so I won't do it. So that's my intensely sincere apology. Yeah, we should definitely get Alex on the show. I met him at Gen Con, and he was a cool guy. So thank you guys for showing up for the thing. Cassie, do you have any Nope. Before we do that, Kevin, do you have anything that you want to plug? We always let our guests plug stuff. Got anything you want people to know about?
I'm working on a new Promethean supplement, so that'll be coming out before too terribly long, but they take forever, so I don't know. Let's see. Dark Terrors just came out, and it sucked the life out of me, so you're holding a little bit of my soul when you have it. So
I felt it. I do.
Yeah, that's that. I was hired to write most of that stuff years ago, so that was like a great case of blue balls. I don't know, but yeah, that was yeah. So go get Dark Terrors. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it now. Aside from that, we've got Better Than Bad before too long. We've got
Very excited about that.
a whole bunch of cool stuff happening, and God, there's something I want to plug, but I'm not supposed to talk about it. Let's just say huge things coming.
Right. Cassie, got anything you want to plug?
I will just say Emerald Grid Twitch channel with a Twitch TV/Emerald Grid. Tomorrow we're playing Curse of Strahd. We've been off for a week, but we're gonna get back into D&D and Curse of Strahd on the 6th.
Yeah.
I got one thing I could plug.
Yeah, of course.
I teach voiceover and writing over the internet, so contact me.
Yes, that definitely plug yourself for that. Yes, Kevin is a professional voice actor, and he gives lessons. So if you've ever been interested in that, you should absolutely get in touch with him about that. How can they get in touch with you about that, Kevin?
Through Facebook. I'm also available at kevin.r.czarnecki@gmail.com. One of these days I'll get around to having a website.
Right.
But yeah, I've already got a couple of students who are doing commercials and cartoons right now. I'm super proud of. Yeah, I don't just teach you, I actually help you get an agent and get a demo and get you going before I stop.
That's really amazing. So definitely anybody who's listening right now who's ever been interested in doing that kind of thing, get in touch with Kevin and
Tell your friends, buy them a lesson as a gift.
Yeah. I will say plugs. Well, tomorrow night, if you're listening live, you'll hear this in time. Sorry, podcast listeners. Tomorrow night we're doing our yearly tradition of the Shadowrun podcasters are getting together to do the podcast panel, the year-end podcast panel. I don't know who's going to be there. It's been so hectic that it basically hasn't really been organized very well. In fact, I'm inviting Cassie to come on that right now as we speak. I think this is the first she's hearing about it.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, if you want to. We'll talk about it later. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Right.
I'm just telling you.
Wait.
So if you're listening live and you want to listen to that live, we're going to do it on Twitch right here on the Shadowcasters Network Twitch channel. It's going to be at 9 p.m. I think it usually goes about 2 hours. So we'll just get together and talk about everything that's happened this year and talk about how much fun we've had and stuff. Just kind of a retrospective and talk about what we're looking forward to in the next year. And we've been doing it for several years now, and it's a tradition we keep alive. I think Steven Tinner started this tradition, and we try to keep it alive. So yes. The other thing is on January 1st, at 9 p.m. Also here on the Shadowcasters Network Twitch channel, we're going to be doing a live viewing party of, we're going to be watching that new Netflix movie, Bright. We're going to be watching it live. We're going to you can watch along. You can watch along with us. We'll do live commentary, and after the fact, we'll talk about it for maybe an hour or so. And I think Kevin's going to be there because he asked, and why not? It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Other than that, stay tuned to the shadowcasters.network/schedule for our stream schedule, and just go to the website there and check out anything that we've got going on there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go. Guys, stick around for the after party if you're live. And we will talk about stuff. Let's see. If you want to contact us on the show, you can tweet us at 6worldpodcast, number 6 World Podcast. Email us at theshow@sixworldpodcast.com. Our website is sixworldpodcast.com. Our outro music is by Johnny Nuclear and the Meltdowns. You're about to hear that in just a second. Our logo artwork is by David McDermott. You can find him at sixworlddesigns.tumblr.com. He's amazing. We love that guy. He's done so much work for us in various places, and we love it. But for me, Cassie, and our amazing favored guest who's always on the show with us, Kevin Czarnecki. See you guys later. Say bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
When the days have gone dark and the sky's turning gray, everybody in the world, they're just staying enslaved to technology's machines. We just feast for the screen, lost in reality, can't find peace in your dreams. Society sodomized by the lies and the greed, addicted to